All right, welcome to the Week 5 MGFOA training video. We're going to start with some illegal shift plays. We didn't have such a great week on this front. I think a lot of our better teams actually corrected themselves because we've been so strict on it, which is what we wanted to see. Unfortunately, we did miss a few here. This is a point of emphasis for us again. Offensive team just never set. Now, is this going to be declined? Absolutely, right? But we need to do the job. It's illegal. What if something crazy happens? Let's say the defensive team commits a foul. Well, now it should offset. Maybe the quarterback picks this ball up and makes a couple people miss and runs for a touchdown, right? You never know what can happen. I shouldn't have to explain. It's clearly illegal. We need this. This has to be penalized as an illegal shift. I don't know how we can miss this. Same type of thing here. The offensive team is just clearly never set. I think you can even see the kind of the short wing on the near side kind of maybe reach. Go ahead and put a flag on the ground, right? Referee, you can get this. Any of the front three, referee, both short wings, somebody on the crew has got to put a flag down. This is not legal action. We have got to make sure that we start plays legally. It's a point of emphasis for us. It's going to remain a point of emphasis for us all season. Just got to get flags down on this stuff, guys. Same thing here. The receiver on the near side, he's not set for a full second. You've got to get set for one full second before the ball is snapped. If it's a blowout game, maybe we can warn here. But this game went to overtime, right? Like, we've got to enforce this rule, this illegal shift rule. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, so that kind of gets us through the illegal shifts. For the most part, we didn't have major issues. There was a couple of games where we saw some issues. The next thing I want to talk about was just we have to continue to officiate. This happened a couple times in this game. So we get a defensive holding foul against the receiver up here at the top. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm crazy about the call. I'll never really see the receiver kind of runs into the defender and they mesh, and I don't really ever see the receiver lose a step. So I'm not necessarily crazy about the defensive holding call. You could argue that maybe he plays through the back here at the end, so it should be DPI. I can get there, but either way. All right, that's not really what I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was we have a flag here, whatever. This ball gets batted up in the air, and number 66 of the offense catches it. This is important. The end of the play is important. That's usually going to be the first question that a referee asks, right? And you can see nobody really recognizes that this ball is caught. Nobody's marking the end of the run. Both short wings are still standing back at the line of scrimmage. But this is a completed pass, I was the referee on this. And the first question I asked was, what's the result of the play? And I was told incomplete pass. The pass isn't incomplete. It's caught. And that could matter, right? In this situation, it didn't really matter. But we've got to get in good habits of, and this is not the first time we've had a situation like that this year. We've got to get in good habits of throwing a flag, but we have to continue to officiate. We have to do our job. And then this was maybe even, to be blunt, maybe even a little bit worse here. So we get a short little punt. And we get clear and obvious KCI. Everybody understands this is KCI. It's absolutely KCI. This is still a live ball rolling back here, right? This is still a live football. We can't just stop officiating once we have a foul. If the receiving team wants, they could go down here and pick this ball up and run it back for a touchdown. This is a live ball. We have to be able to throw our flags and continue to officiate. And that seems to be a little bit of a breakdown that I've noticed a couple of games this year. Where officials just seem like we could just throw a flag and just stop. Not just this crew. This has been a kind of a thing I've noticed a couple of times this year. So you've got to be able to throw this KCI and then go back with the ball. All right. Another thing to note here on the KCI, if you're the calling official, make sure you throw your flag to the spot of the foul, not just up in the air, because KCI is a spot foul. So we do need to have an accurate spot there. Play 45, the next thing I want to talk about was defenseless receivers. We typically think about that as receivers downfield, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's receivers running short routes. And in both of these situations it is. It's this running back slipping out. They're going to try to run, like not really a screen pass, but something short to the running back here. He is defenseless. Yeah, it's a short route, but he's defenseless. When is he no longer defenseless? So he catches the ball here. And then he gets hit. He is defenseless. I'm not saying it's a foul. Give me a chance. He is defenseless. When does he turn? When is he no longer defenseless? It's when he transitions completely to a runner. And so he catches this ball, and right as he's about to turn and tuck and run, he's starting to transition to a runner, but he hasn't completed that transition yet. So if this ball got knocked out incomplete or knocked out right here, I'd want us to rule it incomplete because he hasn't fully transitioned to a runner, in my opinion. So that's a good rule of thumb: is if the ball came out, would we rule it incomplete? If we'd rule it incomplete, well, then the the receiver's still defenseless. If we'd say it was a fumble, well, then he might have transitioned to a runner. So he is defenseless, but this is still a legal hit. It is forceful, to be clear. It's forceful, but this defender clearly 100%. The end zone view doesn't really show it. The high 50 is the best view. This is a defender that clearly attempts to wrap up and actually makes a great wrap-up tackle. So I wanted to show this. This is a great job of coaching, first of all, and a great job by this defensive player. This is a forceful hit, but he is allowed to use force if he's in the attempt of making a wrap-up tackle, and he does. So if the receiver's defenseless, there's two ways out of jail. The first is to use open hands, and the second is to use a wrap-up tackle, which he does here. So you can have force as long as you're also using a wrap-up tackle. So I wanted to commend this young man and his coaching staff. This is an excellent job. Unfortunately, on this play, I wish we would have called it because, again, it's a short little route here, and this defender does not. This is forceful. This kid is defenseless, obviously. The receiver is defenseless. The defender does use force. There's clearly a forceful hit, and there is no attempt to use open hands, and there is no attempt to wrap up. So this should be penalized as a foul. So we should, one, where the hit was legal because there's an attempt to wrap up. This one was not legal because there's no attempt to wrap up, use open hands, and it's forceful. So we should have had a foul here. Be careful about using the terminology if he was playing the ball. I'm not saying that was used in this game. That's not really a component of the play, whether you're playing a ball or not. If you make forceful contact, the rule requires you to either use open hands or wrap up. And so this is obviously a foul. So I wanted to show we had one example of a legal hit because the defender attempts to wrap up, and one video where there's no attempt to wrap up or use open hands, and it should be a foul. Okay, so obviously the Philadelphia Eagles have made the tush push a thing, right? We've all heard about the tush push. It's very important for us to know because a lot of the coaches don't know, and so they're going to do this. The college and pro rules allow for that. The high school rule does not allow a teammate to push the runner. College and pro does. High school does not. You are not allowed to push the runner. You can push the pile, but you cannot push the runner. And you can see here, number 34 has clearly got his hands up the quarterback's butt, right? If he's lined up directly behind the quarterback here, it should have your eyeballs. And then 34 is clearly pushing his teammate with his hands. Like, this is clearly designed where he is pushing the quarterback forward. So the quarterback goes under center, 34 lines up. This is assisting the runner. Under the high school rule, this is a foul. And so the coaches are going to do this because they've seen the Philadelphia Eagles do it. Everybody does it. Everybody does the tush push, right? Well, you can't do it in high school. Now, they lose yardage, but this is a foul for assisting the runner because, again, under the high school rule book, you are not allowed to assist the runner. You're not allowed to push the runner directly. Now, again, if a pile started here and 34 comes in and starts pushing the pile with his body weight, that's completely different and permissible under the high school rules. But this is a good example if 34 gets directly behind the quarterback and clearly pushes the quarterback forward. It's assisting the runner under the high school rule. Here we go with play 93. Give me a second here. So we get a muff, and then the crew does a great job of shutting this down, right? So we all know if the receiving team muffs a punt, the kicking team can recover, but they cannot advance. So great job. We know the rule, right? But we have to sort of recognize in this situation, we can't let all of these kids run down all the way down here like they do unattended. And I'm sure we were on the whistle, right? I'm absolutely certain we're on the whistle trying to shut this down. But these kids are kids, right? They're going to do silly things. They're not going to hear the whistle, whatever it might be. The crowd's going nuts. So if you recognize this, yeah, chomp on the whistle, shut the play down. We did a great job there, but somebody's got to run down with these kids that are running down here as the punt gets recovered. So once you recognize this situation and you're blowing the whistle, drop a beanbag right here at the 45-yard line, and somebody has got to run down with these young men. Because you could see we even get a hit here. I'm not saying it should be penalized as a foul because, again, everybody was running. Everybody thought the play was continuing. I'm not saying we have to penalize it as a foul, but we at least need to be down here as all this action continues. So we have to stop the play. Absolutely, we got the play right. I'm not saying we didn't get the play right. We obviously did. But at this point, right about here, let's just drop a beanbag and then go chasing after these kids and make sure nothing stupid happens. And then we talked about this in the meeting. I just wanted to show it again for people that weren't in the meeting. In the video a couple weeks ago, we talked about illegal defensive movement that simulates a snap. I wanted to show a couple of good examples of legal defensive shifting. So the defensive team here, they'll give a call, whatever, they'll say shift or something like that. They're not, or I don't even know if they give a verbal cadence, but they all in sync kind of move to one side. But if you'll notice here, nobody on the defense, they don't jump around, their arms remain relatively still. I mean, there's a little bit of movement here, but they're not doing jumping jacks, they're not raising out of their stance, they're not bull rushing kind of forward, they're not like spinning their feet. This is a legal defensive stem in our opinion. We've looked at this. The defensive team is allowed to shift, they're allowed to stem, they're allowed to move in unison, as long as they don't do anything that is clearly intended to try to cause the defense or offense to move, or doing anything illegal. So this is legal defensive shifting motion. And we'll show another example here on play 41. Let me run that back a little bit for you. You can see here the linebacker will kind of come up, and instead of a 3-4, they'll kind of, or a 3-3 look, they'll come to a 4-2 look, like a nickel look, right? So this is legal. Again, there's nothing in this. They're not flailing their arms. They're not doing jumping jacks like that South Gwinnett team was doing a couple weeks ago. This is legal defensive stemming movement here, and you can see that the offensive team kind of expects it. They don't jump. Now, Ola did jump a couple of times in this game, a few times really. But let's monitor this. But as long as they're doing what this team is doing, this is not illegal. This is a legal defensive shift. And so I wanted to show that if we're going to show a couple of examples of illegal motion, I think I wanted to show you a couple of legal motions. Play 64. So we get a try here. It's important that we don't take these tries off, right? They kind of line this kid right here directly over the center, which in the high school rule is technically allowed, as long as he doesn't hit the center. Well, he doesn't hit the center. He just jumps right over him. Right, so it's this kid right here. He just jumps right over the center, and I would say that this is knees foremost. And you know, the thing is you got to remember the center. Once he snaps the ball, the center is not touching the ground with anything besides his feet. So the center is not touching the ground with anything besides his feet. The defender does jump knees foremost. This meets all the criteria of hurdling. This is a foul for hurdling. As a general rule, I would say most offensive teams now on a try do not put a hand on the ground. So all these linemen, you can't jump over them. I would just say that most of the time, if a defensive player jumps over an offensive lineman during a try, it's probably going to be hurdling. And again, it's a safety rule, so I think we need to call it because again, if this kid gets clipped, if the center stands up, he's going to fall on his head. It's the defender that's going to get hurt. He's going to clip, do a somersault, and land on his head and neck. We can have serious issues. It's a safety rule here. To be clear, this is even a foul in college and high school, or college and pro now. No, that doesn't really matter. But if the coach says, well, I saw that on TV, that's a foul in college and pro, what he just does. So it stands to reason probably a high school foul as well, just because we typically err on the side of safety of the high school game. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and grab a hurdling foul on this. All right, so that wraps up this week. We're back to the beginning. So we are right at 15 minutes. So a really, really short video. I think, again, shortest one of the season. So I keep working on trying to make these a little bit shorter for you guys. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something. And good luck in your Week 5 matchups.